Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 63 of Third and Wrong. I'm your co-host, Stephen Bolin, and I still don't know where to look on my computer when I'm talking to you. Do I look at the camera? Do I look at me? Do I look at Ozzy? Who knows? With me, as always, is Austyn Dow Long, out of Medicine Hat. Austyn, how are things?
Man, I'm so glad somebody else said this because I went through the Wizard of Oz series last year, also not knowing where the hell to look, and here we are almost a year later, and I still don't know. So but to answer your question, things are going very good.
It's weird because, like, I look at the camera and I feel like I'm focusing too much. And, like, if people are looking back on this, like, they're like, what the hell's this dude staring at? But if I look at me, it seems more natural, but maybe that's just me being a narcissist. Zach, you never know. Zach couldn't be with us tonight. He is doing adult things, looking at a couple houses. So big things happening for him. So excited for him. Hopefully we made it a requirement for the agency that it has prime podcasting space. He's going to cover the walls in foam so you can't hear big trucks going by, like which is happening right at my house right now. And no, so we're excited for him. He'll be back on next week. So just
And we're hoping that he's not using amateur agency money for the down payment.
oh yeah, that big nest egg that we have saved up for the agency funds, eh? Ozzy, let's get right into it here. The NFL came out this past week and got rid of the pass interference review, something that a lot of people found popular after the Rams-Saints NFC Championship game 2 years ago. Obviously, that blatant missed pass interference call on the Rams cost the Saints a trip to the Super Bowl. And so they added that rule in. However, this past year is kind of a disaster. They couldn't seem to get it right. I know Pete Carroll was really bad at challenging that rule. I think he only got it right once, and he challenged it almost once a game. Like he just tried to see if he could get it, and it just became too much. And the CFL struggled with it as well, but they kept it. They limited the amount of challenges you could use on it. So because it was like game times were going way too long because they were always challenging it. Anyways, back to the NFL, they've scrapped it. I can't say I'll miss it. I mean, I'm kind of a let them play philosophy when it comes to that. Like, I don't want them like what happened in the NFC Championship 2 years ago. That's blatant and missed, and it shouldn't be a thing. Like, that should have been called. But how often is something like that missed? In my opinion, and I watch a lot of football, I don't see it. It's like people are like, oh, it happens all the time. I don't really see it. What are your thoughts, Ozzy? Are you happy to scrap that challenge rule?
Man, I don't know to what extent they scrapped it, if they just totally outright did it, but so I wanted to comment on what you said, how you said it doesn't happen all that often. I watched a lot of games last year, and I'm like, man, this is happening a little bit more often than it should. And the first half of the season, they weren't really overturning much, and then there
Yeah.
was just a switch that flipped, and then they started overturning more and more calls. So it would have been nice to see some consistency at least, and before they just go ahead and scrap it altogether. But um, I'm kind of a mixed bag with it. They just were horrendous with it for the first half of the year. They were a little bit better as the year went on, but you can't have a rule where you're kind of changing it mid year,
Mm-hmm.
how it's called and stuff like that. So for that reason, if they couldn't find a way to get some consistency with it, then I'm totally cool with that. Um, I would like to see them keep a portion of it to the extent that, like, a Roby Coleman play happens, that the command center can be like, all right,
I
we
was just
missed
gonna
it.
say that. Like, if there's a blatant one, like an eye in the sky can come in and be like, "Yeah, y'all fucked up.
Like
Get rid of that,
really
right?"
bad. Exactly.
But people were throwing like Pete would throw a challenge flag, and there was like a little push or something, and it's like, come on, Pete, you're just burning a flag at that point, and it's uh, it wasn't good situational coaching, and I feel like the rule it angered the fans because it wasted time at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Totally.
yeah, I'm
So
okay with
I
that.
would,
Yeah.
I do hope that they leave the door open on that, and maybe they did. Like I said, I just kind of saw that today, and I was
Mhm.
like, okay, we got to talk about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure. I don't
Didn't
think I'll
the
miss it either. I was getting way too emotionally attached on calls that should have been
mhm.
overturned, and then the league would be like, nope, it's fine.
Didn't the XFL do an eye in the sky rule? I
Yeah,
thought they had something like that, which maybe now they're defunct. The NFL can swoop in and steal their ideas. Why
that
not?
why
Uh,
not indeed.
so the NFL also we had some poor timing last week. Released our episode, and then the NFL schedule had been released, but when we recorded, it wasn't out yet. So NFL schedule's out. They've planned for a full season. Whether that happens or not, we don't know. But this is an optimistic podcast, except when it comes to the Seahawks offense. But this is an optimistic podcast, so we're going to assume they're going to play every game on that schedule. And whether it's in empty stadiums, full stadiums, half full stadiums, who knows? But they've released the full schedule, and it seems like full systems go. That being said, Ozzy, what are some of the biggest games in your mind that you saw on the schedule? I'll actually start with mine.
Nice.
I think it's week. I put week 1 on my sheet. It's wrong. Week 2, Seahawks home opener. Patriots at Seahawks Sunday Night Football. Now, I wish Brady was still on the Patriots for this one, but we're likely to be facing Jared Stidham. But I'm fired up for this one. It's always a good time when the Patriots and the Seahawks get together. Everyone remembers the Super Bowl. Okay, we haven't forgot. I'm sure you're going to show that highlight 30 times more than they need to of the pick on the goal line. But you want to go back to 2012. The Seahawks won a tightly contested game, 24-23. In 2016, Sunday Night Football in New England. Russell Wilson and Tom Brady went back and forth, came down to a goal line stand by the Seahawks.
Ironically.
On Cam Chancellor on Gronk, and the throw went over Gronk, and the Seahawks escaped with like a 36-30 victory or something. Or no, they won by 8. Because I think you guys would have needed a 2-point conversion. I'm not
sure what it was. I just remember being heartbroken that we were throwing on the 1-yard line after having.
Yeah. Hey. What do you
Bill
know?
must have done that. He just plotted that. He's like, we got to do it. It's poetic justice. We'll lose a regular season game.
Yeah,
we'll win the Super Bowl.
Throw this one away. Yeah, he still won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, there's been fireworks each of the last 3 times they've faced each other. Who knows? Maybe if traveling restrictions are lifted, a little amateur agency trip down to Seattle for the Sunday tilt, and that'd be a lot of fun. What are you looking for in that game now, Ozzy? We have a good idea of who's on the rosters. There's obviously training camps and cuts to be made, but Stidham, we don't know much about, but do you give him a good shot going up against a Seattle team that, for what we know right now, doesn't have much of a pass rush?
Yeah. So first of all, we'll definitely, if travel restrictions are loosened, we're going. Amateur agencies writing the check, we're going. But yeah, I think the Stidhammer is ready to drop the hammer on Seattle. He's ready to go. In all seriousness, though, it would be a good matchup just in terms of the coaching. Obviously, you've got 2 of the greats in the league right now, and the Patriots defense is still fierce, and we kind of got some additions that I'll get into later that would definitely help in terms of stopping the shoddy run express. And we know we have the secondary that could slow down Russ, hopefully, but Russ is too damn good. I think that the Seahawks would probably blow out the Patriots in all seriousness, just because a young quarterback going into Seattle is not a recipe for success. So
yeah, prime time. The Seahawks in prime time at home have like an unreal record. I think it's like 30-2 in the Pete Carroll era. So it's just crazy. Like Pete just gets them all fired up. It's like the lights are turned on at CenturyLink, and the boys are all just ready to go, and little chips on their shoulder from whatever's remaining of the roster for the Seahawks. I think it's like Russell Wilson and KJ Wright left on that team, and Bobby Wagner and Luke Wilson if he makes the team. We have like 10 tight ends on our team right now. I don't know who's going to make it, but that should be a good one. We don't want to dwell on this matchup particularly too long, but is there another game, full schedule, that you have your eye on, Ozzy?
Buddy, I've got a couple. I can list off a couple. Chiefs Ravens kind of speaks for itself. I'm sure you had that one.
Yeah, I had that one. Week 2.
Bucks Saints. I know you had that one.
Yeah.
But here's a couple underdog ones that are under the radar ones, more likely. Redskins versus the 49ers. Haas King versus Jimmy G. 2 of my favorite quarterbacks going head to head in week 14.
Wow.
And then this is probably my favorite matchup aside from the Pats Seahawks. Seahawks versus Redskins.
Ooh.
Haas King is going to upset your Seahawks in week 15.
Stop
Playoff implications on the line, Bolin.
Actually,
and Haas King is gonna make you squirm a little.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, that sounded awful. because Kirk Cousins and the Redskins walked into Seattle in 2017 and handed us an L. So
That's right.
anything is possible. Yeah, that angered me so. We want to talk about underrated games. Week 13, Bills at the 49ers. Now, mostly outer conference games don't mean a whole lot as far as playoff implications go because they don't play much into tiebreakers, but the Bills at this point are probably good. We're going to know by then if they're for real or not. And if they're fighting for a playoff spot or potentially fighting for that number one seed in a bye, I guess I was going to say fighting for a bye, only the number one seed gets a bye now. But if they're fighting for that 2 seed or just a home playoff game, this could be a huge game to determine, okay, how real are you? The 49ers, in my mind, are going to be probably by week 13 a 10 or 11 win team at that point already. So that's going to be a great test for the young Josh Allen. And that defense against Kyle Shanahan's offense, I'm just really excited. I don't get too excited for outer conference games like that. Like I said, the implications aren't there, but that's when I saw that. And I'm like, that's going to be such a fun game to watch. And I think it's prime time as well.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that you have that one on there because I also put that one on there because I'm totally with you. I'm all aboard as a Patriots fan, as much as I can be, I'm all aboard the Bills doing well this year. Like, I just think it's destined to happen. They've done so well building that team up and everything. So I'm with you. I think that's a good one. Speaking of outer conference games, another one that I highlighted, excuse me, is Chiefs versus Bucks. I think Patty Mahomes versus Tom Brady against that offense. I think that would be a juicy matchup. I think that could be some fireworks right there.
And then last one I'll highlight, obviously I have the Seahawks Niners twice here. They play in week 17 again. That was a classic last year, this time in San Francisco, scheduled for 2:30. But if there's a bye on the line or something, that's going to get flexed into prime time for sure. You can bet on it. But this one I had week 15, Chiefs Saints. This was my Super Bowl prediction last year, I believe. Not going into the playoffs, but before the season even started, I think I had Eagles Chiefs. But anyways, the Saints should be a Super Bowl team, but they managed to choke it away every year. But whether or not Breeze can drag them to another, or actually I shouldn't say drag, they're a well-rounded team, but whether the Saints team can keep it up and be that 12, 13 win team again this year remains to be seen. But this should be a juggernaut matchup with Mahomes versus Breeze. On paper, it's a great matchup. Who knows, maybe Breeze has a Peyton Manning 2015 year and and they're limping into the playoffs as Tom's riding high and clinches the NFC South.
Oh man, I would love to see that just for Tom, but I want to see a healthy and fully competent Drew Brees versus Tom Brady in the NFC South. Things you never thought you would see. There it is.
Yeah, it's weird to wrap my head around.
Yeah, but I have a couple games that I'm not looking forward to. I don't know if you saw that in the doc, but
Spin
here
zone.
we go.
Yeah.
So a couple Patriots games, as you can imagine. Ravens versus the Pats in prime time. Week 10. That Ravens team versus the Jared Stidham-led Patriots. As much as I'm behind Jarrett Stidham, the Ravens defense is always good. They added to it in the offseason so far. Jasper's at the door. He's just itching to get his word in on that game. And so I'm really frightened. We got blown out by the Ravens with Tom Brady on our team. What's going to happen with Jarrett Stidham? Oh, so that's frightening. And then the Patriots versus the 49ers. That's just, you're going to hate to see it. But the thing about that one, though, that I have a glimmer of hope is that Bill knows Jimmy G. And so maybe he could scheme up some things to slow him down. But, man, that's just a team where you've got a really good defense against a young quarterback who I have no idea how he's going to do in year 2.
That's going to be – I'll love to see it, but I don't know about you. Seahawks always have that game every year against the Cardinals. It's in December that they just inexplicably lose, and this time it was to Brett Hundley and the Cardinals in 2019. Thankfully, they get their Cardinals games out of the way by like November this year, so that's great.
I forgot about Brett Hundley.
Yeah, me too, until now, actually. I died too a little inside. So one game I'm a little worried about, though, is actually we were just talking about them, the Bills. The Seahawks, I believe, have to go, if I check this right, to the Bills. It's a 10 a.m. start for them. They have like 5 of those this year. Thankfully, the Seahawks were juggernauts on the road last year, but going up against that tough defense early in the morning for them, and, you know, whether or not our defensive pass rush is up to par and you got Josh Allen running around back there, I feel like that can be a trap game. Not that the Bills are a bad team, but on paper you expect the Seahawks to win that game, and that could be one that they drop that we're kind of looking back on like, damn, Seattle, you missed out on a bye because you lost to the Bills. But
Yeah. Well, when you got LJ Collier at the helm, rushing the passer, I mean, what can go wrong? The vaunted first round pick.
The very feared LJ Collier. Speaking of the draft, Ozzy, and that was last year's draft that I'd like to forget, but this year's draft, let's talk about the AFC East. And obviously your Patriots reside in that division, but you guys weren't the only ones that made some moves. Dolphins found their future franchise quarterback. The Bills bolstered their defensive running game, and the Jets added Becton and Mims to get that offense going, help Darnold out. So we kind of want to do like their way too early predictions. We're obviously going to have our official predictions episode at the end of August and roll that out. But kind of post-draft, schedules out, how do you see your division kind of shaping out, and kind of what's the rationale behind where they're falling based on how they drafted and everything? We'll start with you, and then I have some records, but if you don't have records, it's cool.
Yeah, so I don't really I didn't do records, but I just look at how the teams were kind of put together in this offseason, and how is that what are the implications of that moving into this year? And obviously we've got still a lot of transactions to be made and whatnot, but just first of all, going into the Dolphins, like they totally revamped that defense, getting Byron Jones, Kyle Van Noy, Emmanuel Ogbah, Shaq Lawson. They spent in free agency. They had a lot of money, and they spent. I think that team, with getting Tua, getting Austin Jackson to protect Tua, you build around, get that offensive line kind of built up. I think they're ready to make some noise. Not too much noise, because I think this is the Bills division, but I see the Dolphins being a pesky team this year. And they were last year with a really talent depleted roster. But I always look back to that Eagles game where it's like the Eagles are pushing for a playoff spot. And you have the Dolphins with Ryan Fitzpatrick as their leading rusher beating that team. Like, totally just out to lunch.
Crazy.
So now you give Flores, Brian Flores, all of that talent on defense and let him coach them up. And I think that team is going to be freaking insane. However, I wanted to do that. So Buffalo, I have taken the division.
Yeah, same here.
That they just added too much talent. They're already really good.
That defense added Epinesa in the second round with the 22nd pick in the second round. Like he was a projected late first round pick, and now he's just joining that juggernaut.
Oh yeah,
Bills defense. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they signed Mario Addison, Vernon Butler from the Panthers. Like, that defensive front is insane, and not to mention Josh Norman. So Bills.
Oh, I forgot about that. They added Josh Norman. Hey, people say he's
to go with Trey White, man.
I've seen stranger revitalization stories.
Yeah.
So
I think he's only 31.
Yeah, I wouldn't write him off. Maybe it's a system thing. So we'll see.
And the funny thing is that his best years were with Sean McDermott as his DC in Carolina. So yeah, mind blown. So Bills first. I believe in Jarrett Stidhammer. Stidham, for those who don't know too much about him, but Jared Stidhammer is his nickname now. And the Patriots are going second in the division.
Ooh.
Then the Dolphins. I say the Dolphins are pesky, but pesky like 8-8 pesky.
Yeah.
Not like 10-win pesky, but Patriots are 9-7 around there. And then the Jets, I just like, I look at what the Jets did. They obviously got George Fant, a great tackle, as you know, Steve.
Yep.
Former basketball player. They signed Connor McGovern to be their center. So they kind of build the pieces or put the pieces around Sam Darnold. So I like the strategy around that. Get a good offensive line for the kid who's seeing ghosts last year.
Forgot that quote, damn it.
But then they go and draft Mekhi Becton to be his left tackle. So hopefully there's some good things forming with that offensive line. But I look at the skill position, or wide receiver specifically, because you've got Le'Veon Bell running back. You've got Brashad Perryman, Denzel Mims. And then who else really? Nobody off the top of my head that's really noteworthy at wide receiver. And Perryman is the epitome of hit and miss. Like, he is just hot and cold.
Yeah.
And Denzel Mims, there's no guarantee. I'm not going to compare him exactly to N'Keal Harry, but we've seen how some of these wide receivers who are expected to come in and have a big role, like, they might just not.
Mm-hmm.
There's counterexamples to that, obviously, but I don't like what the Jets have done, in short, and so I don't think they've done enough to really be like a real contender.
Right.
With that being said, I think the AFC East is actually quite close.
Yeah.
I don't see any like 4-win teams here, but I definitely think it could be like 6-10 to 10-6, and just everyone sandwiched in between.
That's how I had it playing out too. Like, and I went through their schedules individually just on my free time and kind of looked through it. And the Bills I have going 10-6. That's probably good enough for their division and maybe like a 3 or 4 seed. So I'll get them a home playoff game in the wild card round anyways. It's just, I'm looking at some of the games in there, and like they have a pretty tough schedule. Like, you know, they got to play the Seahawks and the Niners and even the Cardinals or Rams. Like, the entire NFC West could upset you on any given day. And let's be real, like, maybe not the Rams so much anymore, but I wouldn't put it past McVay to just all of a sudden put together a great game plan and shock you, right? So that worries me. And what I do like about the Bills is the addition of Zach Moss, who's just a really bruising running back, to put him with Singletary. You don't want to have to say for your third-year quarterback, take the pressure off him, because you want to rely on your former first-round pick, but it does take the pressure off him a little bit. You can kind of help alleviate that with a bruising running game that could wear down opposing defensive lines, and then just let Josh Allen run around back there and work his magic. And it doesn't have to be so random. Like, you put him on some design bootlegs and just get him out of the pocket, make some plays in open space. I really like the Zach Moss pick. They had Seahawks written all over him, and I just don't think they took him. Or they took him in the 3rd round. The Bills did, so he was getting mocked to Seattle in the 4th and 5th round. So I just don't think it was there for him. But I had the Bills 10-6. I actually had, because the Jets went 7-9 last year.
I don't think they were that good.
No, I thought they were pretty close in the race for a while there.
Let me just take a gander here. The Jets were, oh wow, okay, yeah, I'm schlepped 7-9.
Yeah, okay, I thought I remembered that right. So I was going through their schedule and I was like, man, at first I went and I'm like, this is a 4-win team, but then I remembered how they like beat some teams last year that they shouldn't have beat, and I think Darnold, and then you give him Becton, and on paper you give him Mims. I'm inclined, I have him written down at 8-8 right now, 2nd in the division. And this is way too early predictions. Like these records will change at the end of August. This is just kind of went through quickly, wrote it down. And so I really have faith in Darnold. I have no faith in Gase, though. And I think this is their ceiling unless they move on from Adam Gase, honestly. So that was me. Pats I went through, and I was trying to look at your draft, Ozzy, and there's no names that really stuck out to me. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on maybe some of the additions you made in the draft that you felt can maybe help round out this roster. Because just – kind of as a casual draft observer looking at this team and looking at your selections, I was like, there's nothing that stuck out. I'm like, oh, that was a dope pick, you know?
Yeah.
If Tomac was here, you'd probably find a bunch, but
the Pats they didn't have a very sexy draft at all. They got guys who will contribute, but they're not like big name guys. So Kyle Duggar, their first pick in the draft.
This is Diet Coke, by the way. This is not any kind of alcohol. We put this on YouTube, so you got to be clear with that. Sorry.
True.
As you were.
Well, don't worry. We were talking about mushrooms last week, so now you got.
Hey, there we go. That didn't get taken down. So.
But yeah, so Kyle Duggar, he's not going to come in and be a starter right away, I don't think, unless we have plans to move on from Patrick Chung. We just re-signed Devin McCourty. Kyle Duggar is a guy who I've seen that people have been talking about him being a replacement for Patrick Chung at strong safety and Devin McCourty at free safety. So I don't know what his projection really is. I'm not sure who the most reliable source is there, but maybe he's good at both. So yeah, like he's not going to come in and contribute right away. The guys who people don't really know about, but they should take into consideration when, like yourself, you're looking at the Patriots and being like, okay, what do they have? Mm-hmm. Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings, they're 2nd round and 3rd round pick, I think, is what they were. and they're going to be replacements for Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins.
Okay.
We use Jamie Collins as an outside linebacker, rushing the passer a lot. That's what Anthony Jennings and Josh Uche do both. I've seen Josh Uche listed as a middle linebacker, which is weird, but I think that he's going to play outside linebacker. So we got two guys who are going to be rushing the edge there. And so those are going to be replacements for Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins. I think that whenever you get somebody like that with Bill Belichick, they just seem to do well. And so that's what has me excited when you look at those guys and as replacements. Aside from that, like we got a couple tight ends, we drafted some O-linemen. There's nothing that's really going. I don't see those tight ends producing a whole lot in the first year that would get you to maybe change your prediction. But looking at the way the defense was last year, and it was very good, as top 2 or 3. Then you look at how it depends on the development of Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings, but both come from prominent programs, Michigan and Alabama. And you've got really good coaches at those programs going to Bill Belichick. I mean, to me, I want them to be hits, and they just look like you can't miss with those guys, just based on what we know. So that defense, it's lost a lot of players, but it hasn't lost a lot of talent in terms of the pieces that we need for a nice defense. So.
Yeah, I think for the Pats, the word, and it was used on the Seahawks in 2018 after they'd missed the playoffs the year prior. Everyone wants to say the word rebuild because everyone just like foams. Even me, I froth the mouth when I hear the word rebuild. I just love it. I want to see it deconstructed and built back up again. Like that.
Especially with the Patriots, everybody wants the Patriots to rebuild. Already.
Just they want to see them go 2-14 and just suck, and that's not happening. The word to use here, and it was used for Seattle, is retool. You just need a little wrench here, a little WD-40 there, and this is the kind of year that I have you guys going anywhere from 6-10 to 9-7. You're going to get that kind of. You might win some games you're supposed to lose. You might lose a game you thought, how did we were supposed to win that? That was the Jets, and Darnold throws 4 touchdowns, not seeing ghosts anymore, right? You don't know, but as much as we all want to see a massive rebuild, as Pats haters, a proud Pats hater myself here, it's just simply not going to happen under Bill Belichick. It'll be a retool year. Those guys that you mentioned in the draft will maybe just need a full year of experience. Another draft comes in, another free agency period. And then you really know if Stidham's the guy or not, or you go and trade up for Trevor Lawrence or sign whoever. We don't know I don't know what the free agent crop of quarterbacks look like next year, but I think this is just kind of the wait and see years, which isn't what a lot of Pats fans or Pats haters want to hear. It's going to be like that kind of weird, like they go 7-9. Everyone's going to be kind of like, shit. Well, as a hater, they'd be like, well, they'll be back next year. I thought they'd be way worse. And now there they go. Right. So
yeah,
I have them going 6-10 ish, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had 9 wins. I'd be really surprised if they got more than 9 wins though, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally the Dolphins, we talked about how many additions they made. You talked about the defense, and then on offense, Tua and Austyn Jackson immediately improved that offense. And I didn't like how they didn't address the running back position, so I'm not sure if there's going to kind of go by a committee basis there, but you can't have Tua being your leading rusher as Fitzpatrick was last year, because Tua obviously has those injury concerns. So I have them going in that 6-10-ish range too. Could be 5, could be 7 wins there, but I'm in total agreement with you. I don't see a floor of this division of less than 5 wins. I'd be shocked if any of these teams put up like a stinker of a 3-13 season or something. I'd be like, wow, something must have had to gone wrong. Someone got hurt. Someone gets fired. Someone's playing their bass really loud outside. You just don't know, right? So must be some good tunes. It's nice outside. I should have recorded outside. That's an idea. I don't know if
it wouldn't have worked because of the bass though.
Well, that notwithstanding, but it'd be nice. Maybe the win would be awful, but that's a future discussion. So I have Bills, Jets, Pats, Dolphins, just to recap for everyone. And you had Bills, Pats,
Dolphins,
Jets. Yeah. It's a crapshoot at this point. I have no idea how that's going to shake out. I don't know if anyone really does, but any thoughts on my predictions?
Yeah, no, I think that you surprised me with the Jets because I was so low on them. I don't know what I was thinking. Like that I'm so low on them that they went 7-9. That's pretty darn good. And then they go ahead and get Darnold what he was missing last year, which was that offensive line. So you kind of got me second guessing myself because you make a lot of sense in putting them there.
But a fourth place Jets team, like you said, could be like 6-10 or 7-9, right? Like this division could be that good.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So because you said you had them at like 8-8.
8-8, second place.
Yeah. So that's again, that's pretty iffy. So otherwise, no, I think the Bills just being there is like they're the Kings. I mean, Stephon Diggs, we didn't even mention.
Oh God, forgot.
Yeah. So that team is just ready to do it. I was trying to think of something Zach would say just to get Zach's spirit in here, but
he's still with us, Not scare the listener. Should we move on to some Canadian Corner talk?
Yeah, we should.
Cool. It's time for Canadian Corner. I thought you were doing it. All right.
I know. I was going to see if I waited if you would do it, so I'm glad I did.
I wonder how many new listeners we have that don't know what that is. So if you don't, go back to not our first episode we talked about. Don't go back to the first episode. That was rough. But our first couple episodes, we had more like segments just to keep ourselves organized. And now we just break it down. We don't have like names for our segments, which maybe we'll get back into. We're just thinking out loud here. But we used to go, it's time for Canadian Corner, eh? And then Ozzy would make a bird sound because it started when one day the soundboard didn't upload to our old podcasting site that we used. And so we're all waiting for the actual geese or goose sound to go. But it wasn't there. So Ozzy improvised and we all laughed and it just became a regular thing. But now that we're on camera, it just seems like, how do you do that without losing your
going
shit,
like this and going, you just look like a fool.
You just look like a fool. And we've already passed that line, but we don't want to go even further. Anyways, time for some CFL talk. Rod Peterson of the Rod Peterson Show. I should have named this the Steve Bolin Show. No, I'm kidding. That's just my ego talking. He's known for his hot takes. He's based out of Regina, sometimes known as a Rough Rider homer, but I enjoy his content because it stirs a lot of discussion and it's entertaining after the end of the day. And that's what he's here to do, entertain us and provide hot takes for us to talk about. So he released his top 10 CFL quarterbacks as it stands right now. And lo and behold, he had Cody Fajardo at number 1. I'll just do his top 5. Bo Levi Mitchell at number 2. Mike Riley at number 3. Trevor Harris at number 4. Nick Arbuckle at number 5. Not mentioned in his top 5, Vernon Adams, Jeremiah Mazzoli, or Matt Nichols. All you could probably argue over Nick Arbuckle, who had limited starts, but I'm really excited about Nick Arbuckle. Has huge upside. And with Paul LaPolice in Ottawa, could very well be a top 5 quarterback after the season. Optimistic podcast, when there's a season, and maybe in front of empty stadiums, could be a top 5 quarterback after this season. So, notwithstanding, he got ratioed on this tweet, 51 replies to 4 retweets and 90 likes. So, needless to say, people weren't too pleased. So, it gave me the idea. Ozzy, who are your top 5 CFL quarterbacks right now going into the 2020 season that is actually happening because we said so?
Yeah, well, obviously it's happening, right? Because we interviewed Connor McGough and he's training like he's getting ready like there's a season.
And check his Instagram story. He's there. He's putting in the work. I'm drinking Diet Coke. He's putting in the work.
You're drinking Diet Coke, so it's bound to be a season.
Yeah.
Like those things go hand in hand.
I'm getting my cheering body ready. I'm getting my McMahon body ready. When I'm in the stands, I get a hot dog first quarter, a popcorn second quarter, and then another beer at halftime in the third quarter. That's the McMahon diet.
Do you actually have that routine?
Yeah.
Holy God.
Yeah, you get a hot dog before the game.
It's a science.
First, at the end of the first quarter, hot dog's gone. It's gone within the first 5 minutes of the game anyways. Next is the popcorn. That should last you the whole game. You get a beer at each stage actually too. I'm not a candy guy, so I know some people, what about some Twizzlers? I don't know. You're not getting Twizzlers. You get another beer. Popcorn. Yeah. Not with beer, right? You can sweeten, beer, popcorn, hot dogs. It's like the three food groups that you need at a football game. So I'm preparing I just had a full pizza for supper. I'm ready. Connor's ready. The CFL's going to be ready.
Yeah. I'm
Anyways,
so glad we
as you
had this
heard-
tangent. I'm so glad Steve just taught all of our CFL fans
How to eat.
well, all of our listeners. I was gonna say all of our listeners, but then I thought some of them aren't CFL fans. But no, if you're listening to this podcast, you're gonna be a CFL fan. It's bound out
sooner or later.
And now you have the diet of what you need when you do go to a CFL game. Maybe
when
you
you
go
go
with
to-
the amateur agency.
Right? Yeah, when you come with us, you don't understand, okay, CFL, different rules. It's okay. You're sitting with the amateur agency. We're going to be there. We're going to explain everything for you. So you got the entertainment in front of you, CFL, great game. Now you have the diet to supplement that, to build the experience, right? The game does its work. You got the amateur agency there as your friends. Now you got the diet to go with it. It's like an all-inclusive resort, except all-inclusive
Experience.
There's no spa, but I can give you a little shoulder rub if you want while we're there, free of charge, just because I want you to watch some CFL football. Ozzy, your top 5 quarterbacks.
The tangent had a tangent.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, here we go. So for me, like Rod Peterson is obviously very much a Saskatchewan homer, putting Fajardo up at number 1. There's just I'm not prepared to do that yet. He's definitely top 5. But for me, it's non-negotiable. It's Bo, Trevor Harris, top 2, 1, 2. Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go first, and then I'll disagree with you after.
Yeah, Bo Levi Mitchell, number 1. Trevor Harris, number 2. You could maybe make the argument for switching them. Maybe I like Trevor Harris a little bit more because I watched him dice up the Alouettes' cheeks in the playoffs and in week 1. Still got memories of those freaking 23 straight completions. But anyways,
what an experience.
Another tangent. Number 3. This is not even. It's gonna sound like a homer pick, but it's really not. It's facts. Vernon Adams Jr.
Oh, Mike Riley.
I'll explain.
Dude.
I'll explain.
Dude.
And then Cody Fajardo. And then Mike Riley.
I'm gonna look right at the camera for this one, just so you know.
Okay. You're staring into my soul now.
I missed the last 2 picks because I was processing that. So what's 4 and 5 again, please?
Cody Fajardo.
Okay.
And then Mike Riley.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're talking about top 5 quarterbacks for the 2020 season that is, in fact, happening.
Yes. Because we said so.
Vernon Adams Jr. is ready to take that leap. He was good last year. He's going to be better this year. Cody Fajardo carried the Riders at times. He is very much ready for at least – well, he only had 18 touchdowns, 8 picks. I think he's ready to take –
He had it almost like – I think he had 8 touchdowns on the ground or something.
Yeah, so that's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually get Vernon Adams' touchdown runs either. I think he had like 10, if not more. So he had 24 touchdowns last year and 13 picks. But anyways, Cody Fajardo and Vernon Adams are taking the leap from those numbers, in my opinion, because you just get better.
Vernon had 12 touchdowns on the ground last year. Wow.
Can't believe it. And
Sorry,
Mike Riley.
Crazy.
No, that's okay. You're still shocked. I get it. And our listeners are probably still a little shocked. The Mike Riley homers are just like, Ozzy, you work for the Lions. How are you saying this?
Just burning all the bridges on the way out. See ya.
This is no ill will to the Lions or Mike Riley. But if we're looking at what's happening in 2020, in the season that's happening, Mike Riley is the 5th best quarterback. Last year, I get they had a crappy O-line. I get that he was scrambling for his life. I get that he was the highest paid quarterback. However, what I'm going to say is I did not like what I saw from Mike Riley last year. I love what I saw from Vernon Adams last year. I love what I saw from Cody Fajardo last year. They were able to take those steps as young quarterbacks, both starting out as backups, mind you. So they weren't even ready to start the year last year. Now they're preparing like they're starters. Watch them take off, and I guarantee you in November after the Grey Cup, or December if they extend the Grey Cup, I don't know. We're going to be talking about because this is actually the matchup that I have: Vernon Adams versus Cody Fajardo in the Grey Cup.
And then the Riders win 40-10.
Yeah, good joke.
Okay.
Just,
all right.
We're gonna be talking about these guys as top quarterbacks in the league.
Future faces of the league.
Yeah, exactly. So, as you, what's your list like, Steven?
Or
do you have any thoughts about that before you go into your list?
You know what? I quickly just right now switched mine because a little bit of what you said. Trevor Harris, we have been sleeping on him. I looked at his stats and then what Ricky Collins was saying in that game in the semifinal. And you know what? It's weird to dance around this. Jason Maas was the head coach and he called the plays for Edmonton, but he was very conservative at times. I think their red zone percentage wasn't great. So I'm hoping that's improved when he comes to Saskatchewan, but I think Harris's stats could have been better last year if maybe they're a little more aggressive at times in the red zone. They kicked a lot of field goals. I remember that being a big complaint for the Edmonton fans, but Trevor Harris is a very good, he's an elite quarterback in the CFL. Like Ricky Collins said in one of our interviews, I forget which interview it was, not too long ago. And he's like, I said, what do you say to the people who are sleeping on Trevor Harris? He's like, do you watch the games? And I was like, that's all I need to hear. Right. So, Mike Riley, yeah, it's hard. Cause right. If you bring in their whole career with it, then Mike Riley's way higher, but this isn't a legacy thing. This is going into the next year. So I get why Mike Riley wouldn't be as high on yours. Adams and Fajardo to me are right there. They're tier 2. Whereas if you have the big 3 of, to me, Riley, Mitchell, and Harris, those are the big 3 for me. And then you have tier 2 of Adams, Fajardo, Mazzoli, Nichols. That's not my order. I'm going to give you my order in a sec, but I think they're just right there, and they just need one more solid year because there's been one-hit wonders in the CFL before, and then they disappear, and you're like, Drew Tate comes to mind. Hope to get him on the pod sometime, but, just battled injuries, but everyone thought he's the next in line after Henry Burris and just never could really get consistently going. And, Kevin Glenn, probably a Hall of Famer, but to me, whenever he was in the league, was never a top 3 quarterback because you were dealing with Damon Allen, Anthony Calvillo, Ricky Ray, Henry Burris, but he was never there. So I feel like Fajardo and Adams need to put together 2 or 3 more seasons like they just did to really be in that conversation of an elite quarterback. So that's why I wouldn't have Adams in my top 3, but I respect it, man. You put it out there, and if you're just basing it on kind of who's going to pop going into 2020, yeah, that could be a good list. So we'll go with mine here. Bo Levi Mitchell, number 1, just had off-season shoulder surgery. Was kind of battling through that all year last year. Obviously, Nick Arbuckle came in for a stretch of games. I think it was 7 or 8 of them, and carried the Stamps through. But Bo Levi, when he's fully healthy, is an assassin. He's he's an elite quarterback, the best in the CFL. And Rider fans love to hate him, but I feel like I'm the one Rider fan on Twitter that's just banging the drum, being like, you guys can hate on him, but you have to respect him. He's the best. He's number 1. Even last year with a bum shoulder, had a 96 rating, 19 touchdowns, 66% completion, over 3,000 yards, on a bum shoulder.
Wow.
I had Mike Riley at number 2, but you talked me out of it literally as you were going. So I'm putting Trevor Harris up 1 above Mike Riley. Last year had a 102.9 QB rating, only 16 touchdowns, but 6 interceptions, kept that low, 72% completion, just super efficient, man. And I think if they were a little more aggressive in the red zone, which Jason Maas, please let Cody cook, please. Okay. Because now he's the offensive coordinator in Saskatchewan. I think he could have had well over 20 touchdowns last year, but they didn't. Mike Riley, for those wondering his stats last year, he's my number 3 quarterback. 96 rating, 20 touchdowns, 69.5% completion, but 15 interceptions, and just under 4,000 yards passing. So my issue with that is a little too many interceptions for my liking, but I think he was just trying to make plays that weren't there because that team was so devoid of talent and maybe direction, and there's big expectations, the new uniforms, the new regime. They're trying to get the hype going. He's trying to will that team to the playoffs. And unfortunately, he broke his wrist near the end of the season. So this is almost a full season of stats. And Mike Riley only throwing 20 touchdowns is just kind of alien to me. Usually he's in the high 20s, low 30s. I think he had 34 the year prior. So not something I'm used to seeing. Number 4, Ozzy, a name you didn't bring up, Matt Nichols. Matt Nichols was dealt a raw hand last year, but when he was hurt, he had 107.2 QB rating, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 71% completion. This man was efficient. He was executing big plays, and he was shaking that game manager role that we had all given him. And I think if he had stayed healthy the full season, the Bombers probably would have had home field advantage throughout the playoffs and then went and won the cup, because they were just rolling in my mind. And I think he's one of the most consistent quarterbacks over his career through Edmonton when he joined Winnipeg. And he brought stability to that Winnipeg franchise. I know Nick Kowalski, who we've had on this podcast, released a great article through Last Word on Canadian Football talking about how his playoff performances, like his playoff record, he's had some good games. There's that shootout against BC in 2017. And then there was also a great game against, he had a great game against Edmonton, I believe, or BC in 2016, Edmonton in 2017. They lost both, but it wasn't on his shoulders because he was balling out. So when he steps up, he can. And so I have Matt Nichols at number 4. And then number 5, we haven't mentioned his name yet either, Jeremiah Masoli. Unfortunately, at the time of his Achilles injury, or was it an ACL tear? ACL. At the time of his ACL tear, he only had 9 touchdowns to 7 picks, so he wasn't exactly lighting it up. But in 2018, he had 28 touchdowns to 18 picks and over 5,000 yards. So this dude was lighting it up. I just think their defense let him down. Trevor Harris threw 5 touchdowns in the East semifinal that year and got the Red Blacks to the Eastern final that year in 2018. So, and into the Grey Cup, actually. They lost to the Stamps in the Grey Cup. So that was Harris's coming out party, obviously, unfortunately for Mazzoli, at his expense. And then at 5B, I have it at below my notes, 5B, Cody Fajardo. I love Cody Fajardo. I want him on the pod. I want to get his jersey. I want him to achieve all of his dreams, because he has honestly revitalized this franchise from a rotation of quarterbacks of Collaros and Brandon Bridge and Kevin Glenn and God knows who else, Tino Sensori.
No.
And he's Tino time, man. I was there. I rooted for him. We were all rooting for you, Tino, and it just didn't work. So
my dad's heart broke so bad when
my mom loved him because he's Italian and I'm half Italian. My mom's Italian. I was like, oh, the Italian guy's starting, and then we'd watch him throw 3 picks. And I'm like, damn it. So the Rider fans have been starving for a franchise quarterback since Darian Durant was traded to Montreal Alouettes in 2017. And Fajardo's been that guy. Like you said, I'm going to mention his stats here. 105.2 rating, 18 touchdowns, 71% completion, 8 interceptions, 4,300 yards passing. I forget how many rushing touchdowns. I don't want to look it up right now because I'm on a good rant. So, but I've only seen it 1 year. I need to see it again. He got his contract. He has a few more incentives in there. Cody, let's go eat. Okay, prove me wrong. Show us that Rod Peterson is right and real news, and that we are fake news. I'm here for it. But for now, you are 5B/number 6. And also outside of my list, Ozzy is Vernon Adams. But like I alluded to before, my spiel here, just need 1 more year out of these guys before they really can break that upper echelon for me. So your thoughts on my list?
So go through them again, because
number 1, Bo Levi Mitchell.
Okay.
Number 1, Bo Levi. Number 2, Trevor Harris. Number 3, Mike Riley. Number 4, Matt Nichols. Number 5, Jeremiah Masoli. 5B/number 6, Cody Fajardo.
I think I would say that you're a little high on Matt Nichols for my liking.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because I just remember the start of last year. I still wasn't a fan of his quite yet, but he obviously put the Blue Bombers in an excellent position, and then Zach Collaros was able to turn up the heat in the playoffs, or on the playoff push. But so like, it's not that he's a bad quarterback, but I'm not his biggest fan yet, and I don't know what else he needs to do.
He's not in your top 5,
to show me that, but because I still remember watching back. I forget which game it was actually last year, and maybe it was the play calling too a little bit, but they're behind late in the game and he's just doing checkdowns and stuff like that. It wasn't my cup of tea.
Fair enough.
And so I would put him, obviously not on my top 5, so I would put him down. But I respect your rationale for that. using your list, I would do, because Jeremiah Mazzoli obviously has that it factor, throwing for 5,000 yards and whatnot. I would put him. I would just say that he's a clear-cut better quarterback at that point.
Right.
But and then you can get into the debate of what makes a great quarterback and all that stuff. But so yeah, I'd put Mazzoli there. But I mean, such is life. I would also put Vernon Adams up there. But I think it for you to not put Fajardo in the top 5. I mean, that probably had to break your heart. But
it did, and it was tough because I wanted to put him at number 5, but Mazzoli coming off the ACL tear, I've read some articles. It sounds like he's going to be the starter because we said so. Dane Evans, I think, has accepted the backup role, and he knows his spot on the team, and it's Mazzoli's job to lose. They gave him a very incentive based contract to come in and, because, it's a risk for the team too, investing a lot of base money into a guy coming off a torn ACL. But we've seen Mazzoli, and he's not like, he gets comparisons to Russell Wilson, but he can throw from the pocket. Like, make no mistake, this man has a rocket of an arm. So he has every chance to redeem himself now, and I think he will. So it was really tough between him and Fajardo. I didn't know who to put there. That's why I kind of have Fajardo just on that bubble there. And everyone, I'm sure I'll hear it from Rider fans, he's a most outstanding player nominee out of the West, but that was a year where Bo Levi was hurt. Mike Riley was not Mike Riley, and it seemed Trevor Harris was kind of almost held back by his scheme or play calling, which is strange because they passed more aggressively when I was looking at the numbers, and that's why I'm excited for Moss to come over to Saskatchewan, but their red zone play calling was just not it, and I hope that's corrected, and maybe Fajardo can influence that. So, and Matt Nichols, to me, is just one of the most consistent quarterbacks to play the game this past 5 years, so I'm excited for him to right the ship Argonauts in Toronto. So, and I fully expect him to beat out McLeod Bethel Thompson for the starting job there. So we didn't make any of our top 5s because he's still a mixed bag a little bit. So for me,
who, McLeod?
Yeah, McLeod.
Yeah, he is not top 5 material.
No, his beard's top 5, better than Zach's, but
yeah, I have a 9-player list, and McLeod Bethel Thompson is not on it. Ooh. Sorry, McLeod. He is such a mixed bag, like you said. It's just, you don't know what you're gonna get. When it's Tino Sinceri, the next it's Mike Riley in 2018. Yeah. So
exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 64, we have a special guest joining us. Not going to say who it is though, but because you never know, sometimes scheduling things happen, so I don't want to set the expectation and then it doesn't happen. But it's someone we mentioned on our list here. Maybe it was Ozzy's, maybe it was mine, but we will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, interviewing someone that was on our top 5 to 6 QB list. Zach set it up, so thank you, Zach. And we hope to bring you that next week. But for the time being, Austyn, where can the fine folks find you?
Yeah, so the fine folks, you fine folks. I was going to say something about the interview, but I think I'm going to pass on that. No spoilers.
Pass on it because it's the quarterback coming on pod. Yeah.
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AustynPaul_. That's Austyn with a Y, not an I.
Not an I.
I've seen some of you following me. I've seen the followers go up. So keep it coming. We're learning. It's not an I.
Our self-esteem relies on follows. So please understand the importance. Yeah. It just put it in my veins, and that's what keeps me alive. Awesome. That's fantastic. You can find me on Twitter at SteveBolin22, and you can find me on Instagram at SteveBolin_. Follow the amateur agency first and foremost. We're selfless podcasters here. Follow our blog account first at the amateur agency on Instagram and Facebook, at amateur agency on Twitter. And we have our YouTube channel. We have our website, which you want to get blogging again. If you have hot takes, DM us individually, DM the blog. We're all logged in. We're always on our phones. We're Gen Zers, millennials, you name it. And we're fired up just to talk football, sports, anything, because it's much needed at this point. And you can find Zach on Instagram at ZachFoth_, and you can find him on Twitter at ZachFoth. Don't know how he scored that one. Wish I didn't have to put a 22 or an underscore on my name, but he got it on Twitter, so good for him. And thank you for listening. Ozzy, any parting words, or is Jasper blowing a gasket over there?
Yeah, you can probably hear all three of the little pups just losing their crap. So no, I'll no parting words here. We'll see you
All
next
right.
week though.
Godspeed. I did not have the end recording game ready. Goodbye.